It was announced, and I don't think this is to anyone's surprise, that the upcoming Marvel Blade film starring Mahershala Ali was put on indefinite hold. And I don't think that's a surprise. This is the definition of what they call production hell when it comes to a movie. But this is what it says about the film. And what's weird about this, guys, is that Marvel is committed to this 3 films a year process, which they're going to be doing, which right now it's going to be Thunderbolts, Captain America, Brave New World, and it's going to be the next Fantastic Four movie, which I just realized was called Fantastic Four First Steps, which I personally hate, but
they keep abridging titles. I hate it.
It's better than Fan 4-6, so we'll continue. It says, this comic book empire's decision to take Blade off of the docket was widely expected after Disney CEO Bob Iger stated in an earnings call on May 7th that Marvel will release a maximum of 3 films a year. And the problem is this was the only one of all of those movies that wasn't even in production yet. Vera Dark had a very funny tweet about this. She says, 5 years since casting, let alone initially greenlit, 2 directors, 6 writers. It's been in development hell for a very long time. Once you get to this stage of a product's non-existence, maybe it's best to just give up. Some things shouldn't be made. Cough, cough. Joker 2.
Well, there's no release date because initially they intended to release it in November next year, in 2025.
Yeah.
And now it's just been completely canned.
Yes.
It's nowhere to be seen. That's not to say it's totally dead, but it's basically, you can safely assume it's never going to get made. And some people are actually blaming this on racism. I was confused this morning when I saw that T'Challa was trending again.
Yep.
And the word Chadwick was trending again on X.
Yep.
Because I thought we'd already had this conversation before.
We have.
But people are saying that the real reason Blade is never going to see the screen is that they didn't recast T'Challa in the Wakanda Forever movies.
I do think, the more that I think about it now, so I actually talked last week about how I went on that whole rant about how great Civil War was. And what I realized when I watched that movie is that that was the big debut of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But in my opinion, now this is just my personal opinion, Chadwick Boseman's debut as Black Panther in that movie is infinitely more memorable to me. I think he embodied the role both as T'Challa and as the Black Panther, and it was a fantastic outing. And I think the first Black Panther is a fine film. I don't even really remember that. We reviewed the second one, and I don't even really remember that much of it, when the one that he wasn't in. But I do think that they did a disservice with all of the tools at their disposal story-wise to not recast him.
You're on the recast T'Challa team. You
Yes.
think they should have found a new Black Panther instead of giving it to Shuri.
Yeah.
It's just a weird take to me that they're not looking at the full context. One person said, I hope us Black people one day can be wise and mature enough to discuss and understand the implications of not recasting T'Challa. This is a larger conversation about Black protagonists in superhero movies and movies in general. And they're claiming that Blade was removed from Marvel's release slate because of the race of this protagonist, which is, I think, completely tone deaf. Even in Deadline's initial report about this, they said that development on Blade hit unavoidable delays with a global pandemic and dual industry strikes. The strikes are something that you wanted to cover here as well. They're talking about the lasting consequences of the strikes.
There was a really good article from a couple of days ago from Screen Daily where there was an interview with one of the Sony executives.
He's a CEO. He's stepping down.
He's stepping down next year, right? Yeah. So he goes into it and he basically says it right off the bat. He goes, look, we told you that the strikes were going to cause problems.
Yeah.
You wanted your deal. We gave you your deal. And he talks about how the tax incentives outside of the U.S. are just too lucrative and too good to make working here in the U.S.
Especially California,
a realistic endeavor, and that the new deal was exactly what they wanted, but did exactly what the studio said was going to happen, which was to send a bulk of this work overseas. Like, this was already happening. Before the strike, movies like The Batman were filming in the UK. This has been going on for years. For everyone that watches a lot of TV knows that, you know, Vancouver is where 90% of the television shows end up getting made, right? They ship everything over to
weirdly he didn't
Vancouver.
mention Canada here, but
the reason for that is because of the strong industry culture of production out there because of tax incentives. And what I thought was funny about this, because we're also going to get into this list of Lionsgate movies that just underperformed this year. What was it? It was The Crow, Borderlands, 1992, Killer's Game, Megalopolis, which is not necessarily them because they just handled distribution.
Miller's Girl
was on that list
Jenna
as well.
Ortega.
But my point here is that, look, no actor bats an eye when they make this big movie and then it flops. They never take financial responsibility or any type of responsibility for an underperforming film that they're a part of. Yet they always get angry when the studio takes responsibility for its own financial future and says, look, this isn't going to work. We got to move. We have to do what's best for our business. And I find it unbelievably hypocritical on their part to constantly look. That's not to say that the studios are angels. Certainly they're out to make a profit and do what's best for their business. In a lot of ways, the actors get screwed. But it would be a lot more endearing to the audience who's supposed to like your work if just once in a while you took responsibility for the fact that the stuff that's getting produced isn't resonating with audiences.
Well, it would be different if Mahershala Ali came out and said, hey, they're not going forward with Blade, even though I'm on board, because racism. It's not him who's saying that. It's tens of thousands of fans, though, because the discourse has just gotten that detached from reality.
He's always seemed to me, and I could be missing articles or something, like I maybe it's my own bias because I like him a lot as an actor, but seems like a consummate professional, always delivers a good performance. He's been acting for 25 years. He wasn't the person I thought of for Blade.
Who did you think of?
I just didn't. I didn't give thought. I'd rather they just get Wesley Snipes some TRT and get him on the juice and let him
de-aging, maybe.
Let's not even de-age. Let's just bulk up, get him on the Alan Ritchson workout regimen, and let's get Wesley Snipes back in there. But all of this is in lieu of the fact that we're going to see more than that. We're going to see mergers and consolidation down of brands and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And as these problems persist, it's really funny because they kept saying like, oh, the actors acted like this was the big winning moment for them. Like, we got the deal we wanted. And everybody with a brain who understands how these types of, I'm a dummy. I'm a dummy, but I understand that a business isn't in this to just break even. A lot of times we have that argument where people go back and forth. Do these companies want to make a profit, or do they want to just disseminate what people call the message? Well, I think the truth is that it's a lot more complicated than that, and that it's something closer to the middle. But these companies have to still find a way to fiscally move forward. Yeah. And the best way to do that is to find a way to both disseminate the message and do it for cheaper. And the way to do that is to move production overseas, not just studio space, but acting overseas, animation getting moved over there.
But it just shows that the SAG union and the writers union that were striking last year had no foresight, and they were being really just performative in their activism, as they usually are, because they led to consequences they didn't foresee for all of these actors and writers who can't get work unless they're in the very top echelon. And it's not just that Hollywood studios don't want to produce films in America or specifically California anymore. Even the stars themselves don't want to live in California anymore. Yeah, like, they're leaving.
Glenn Powell's like, I'm out of here, Matthew McConaughey.
Like, I made myself get to the point where I can get work no matter where I live. I'm leaving California as soon as humanly possible.
So here was a list of these Lionsgate movies that bombed, some of them worse than others. Mm-hmm. What I find funny is that what you see here is that the best investments were the smallest amount of money, was the smaller amounts of money put forward. So Miller's Girl, which was Jenna Ortega and Martin Freeman, was made for $4 million, but only made $1,700,000 at the box office. Wah, wah, wah. Ordinary Angels, that was the one with Alan Ritchson that we just, I think we ended up having to see something else the same week, but that cost about $13 million to make, but made about $20 million. Again, that's not going to turn a profit at all, not when you have to split, half of that with the theaters, so it lost money. Imaginary made for $13 million.
Never heard of that one.
Brought in $43 million. So again, if it's a profit, it's a very, very small one, especially if it's a small marketing budget.
Yeah.
The biggest, if you
the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was made on $60 million, and it only made 26.
I loved it. I had so much fun at that movie. Made nothing back.
Why exactly? Why?
I don't know if they just had no faith in the marketing of the film. It's a Guy Ritchie movie. Usually you can advertise on him alone, but it's not like it was just a Guy Ritchie movie. This was Henry Cavill. This was Alan Ritchson. This were big actors at the moment. And you look at
The Crow, much deserved bomb for the Crow reboot.
Borderlands is worse. $120 million budget, made $32 million at the box office.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff, and it comes off of a year before, which had was a good year for them. Saw X, John Wick 4, The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which Mary and me actually liked.
Controversial, given that Rachel Zegler is the star of it. Yeah.
They are kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off in this industry right now. And there's all of this uncertainty, and I don't see it getting better. I see more and more of this. Look, the streaming services aren't even sustaining right now. Netflix rules with an iron fist in the streaming domain. The only show that seems to be popping right now that's not reality TV or something like that is The Penguin, which is doing great numbers and is consistently at the top of the Samba TV charts. But everything else is like Netflix, one Hulu show, Netflix. Everybody else is consolidating and making packages together, so you're just getting cable 2.0. Something else he talks about in that article was that Sony sold off most of its cable streaming stations due to restructuring before. It's a mess for all of them, and I just find it annoying that the actors want the studios to acquiesce, but they don't understand that they have to also take responsibility when the projects they're a part of don't do well.
To pull it back to Marvel, last night, Tim was talking about this headline that came out, and I know we covered it. I just don't remember what we said about it. Kevin Feige fired all of the activists in Marvel, in Marvel Studios, because he realized that, all of their movies were bombing, and he was responsible for such great successes before, and then all of the Marvel movies started underperforming massively. So he decided he was going to go through and clean house and get rid of all of these SJW activists.
From what everyone I've ever read is that Kevin Feige always envisioned Marvel the way that it was in Phase 4. And that he saw the predominantly straight white male characters as a stepping stone to build up a world where those characters could flourish. The problem is he built up that world and then picked these other characters, fine, but the movies they were in were bad. Eternals was bad. It was boring. I can't stress you enough. Any Marvel movie for me most of the time, I can just...
It'll do.
I'll be like, Mary will hate it. I'll be like, look, some stuff happened. Some stuff blew up. There was a sky beam. Call me crazy, but I'm fine with it. Eternals was awful. It had I watched a whole movie where Angelina Jolie at mid-50s put on a clinic on what actual charisma is on screen. Well, all of these other actors just kind of look like they've never done a job a day in their life.
And was received so poorly by critics and audience alike that Kumail Nanjiani literally had to submit himself into therapy afterwards.
What's funny is they were talking about why was Druig mind controlled a bunch of people in Eternals. Why does nobody care about that, but they care about Wanda doing it in WandaVision? Misogyny. I'm like, not misogyny. Nobody watched your movie, and nobody cares about your movie. Okay,
they don't even care enough to be mad about it anymore. But is that headline true, or was that just totally clickbait rumor stuff? I mean, that Kevin Feige went through Marvel and fired all of the activists.
You know what it's like. We'll never know for sure.
Because if he did, I guess the results wouldn't show yet, because it would only show a few years down the line.
2 years, before we would know whether that was even true or not. And here's the problem. That's why Captain America: Brave New World has gone through endless reshoots and is one of the most expensive movies ever made now.
Yeah, they have a tough role to fill.
Look, I saw that trailer and I'm like, White House gets blown up with the... sign me up. Like, if they can make Captain, like, when we talked about this on Salty Nerd, everyone's like, yeah, like, a lot of people are like, yeah, the movie's probably going to be bad. Marvel kind of sucks. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Could be good. I'm like, if they stay away
Always
from
the contrarian.
I'm like, well, no, I'm like, look, if they can stay, this is why television is worse, right? Falcon and the Winter Soldier gets into racial politic. If they can stay away from the racial politics and just show me cool scenes where Cap and Red Hulk are together fighting and the White House blowing up and Giancarlo Esposito says cool things while being a bad guy.
And Captain America's fighting the deep state.
In Sabra, whatever. They can do it. Just make stuff blow up. Give me a sky beam. I'll be fine.
I'm not sure that's quite enough, but...
For me, it is.
Yeah, for you, it is.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.